Now, Pakistan has been at the receiving end of the tough talk from the United States about giving sanctuary to terrorists. Hillary Clinton's famous quote, that is, "Snakes in your backyard won't bite, only your neighbors," reflects exactly what the US seems to think of Pakistan when it comes to fighting terror. To discuss this and related issues, we are joined by Jonathan Landay, National Security Editor of Thomson Reuters. I also have my colleague and senior international correspondent Padma Rao joining us in the studio to help us get a sense of US-Pak relations under a new US dispensation. I'm going to go across to Jonathan first. Jonathan, first of all, thanks so much for speaking with us here on WION. Let's say Pakistan does manage to reset its relationship with the US under a new administration in that country. What will its hope be, really speaking, when it comes to the question of Afghanistan and America's view of that country?
Well, I don't think that there's going to be much of a reset with Pakistan, at least not on the cards. It's hard to say exactly, what either candidate, Mr. Trump or Mrs. Clinton, will pursue in terms of relations in South Asia, because neither of them have spoken about it virtually at all, even though Afghanistan has become the longest war in U.S. history. We've heard virtually nothing from either candidate. So you have to kind of look at the tea leaves and some of the things that they've hinted or they've said. I think that, but going back to the essence of your question, the United States relationship with Pakistan has been on a downward slope for several years. It reflects U.S. frustration, both with the fact that the Pakistanis have, in U.S. eyes, have failed to cooperate with what the Obama administration had hoped would be the beginning of peace talks with the Taliban. There's an enormous frustration with that. There's an enormous frustration with the fact that the Pakistan apparently continues to back the Taliban, which is on major offensives both in the north of Afghanistan, in Kunduz, and in the south. They've been on an offensive in Helmand province. The United States has become, as I said, increasingly frustrated with Pakistan, and you can see that in terms of the amount of money that the United States gives as aid to Pakistan in recent years. It has been on a major downward trend from a high of about $3 billion a year, and that would have been around about 2011. Now the United States is expected to provide under $1 billion this year to Pakistan in both security and other aid.
Right. Padma, I think you have...
Yes. Hi, Jonathan. It's great to see you on our show. I have a question for you. You said that neither candidate has spoken much about the region, about South Asia, about Pakistan, about a future relationship. I just wanted to remind you, of course, of those scenes we saw, I think about 10 days ago, of Trump at a rally organized by the Indian community in the United States, where he made some statements, about how much he loves India and the Indians, for instance. And then I want to take you to Hillary Clinton, what she said in Virginia. She was worried about Pakistan, very obviously. Quote unquote, she said it was running on full speed to develop tactical nukes in their continuing hostility with India, unquote. So what is she likely to do for her own peace of mind, and that of the Americans, if not for the peace of mind of Indians, who are very often the target?
Padma, you asked the question, what would she do? And that's what I was talking about. We don't know really what either candidate would do in terms of dealing with Pakistan. As I said, since she left office as Secretary of State under John Kerry, the relationship with Pakistan has been on a steady decline, as you know, and that's not just due to administration policy and administration frustration. There's an enormous frustration in Capitol Hill in both parties, and as you've seen, there was a move by the Congress to block any kind of American subsidies to Pakistan for the purchase of F-16s. That's another sign of the frustration with Pakistan on Capitol Hill. And so what would she do? It's hard to say, because the fact is that the United States, when it comes to its relationship with Pakistan, Pakistan's nuclear weapons arsenal is probably #1 on U.S. priorities in terms of maintaining contact, maintaining communications, maintaining a decent relationship with Islamabad, and in particular with the Pakistani army. The United States at the same time is hugely concerned, I think a lot of, as is India, as are other countries, with the pace of Pakistan's production of plutonium, the pace of its production of, as Mrs. Clinton, as you referred to, the production of tactical nuclear warheads. We know that the Pakistanis were instrumental in blocking a renewed effort in the Conference on Disarmament to try and push for a fissile material cutoff treaty that would halt the production of plutonium worldwide. And so, but what exactly the United States would do, it's impossible to say either under candidate, because neither of them have spelled out a policy, an approach that they would take towards Pakistan.
Sure. Jonathan, just staying on that, continuing on that note, I'd like to, if you can't project into what either candidate is likely to do in Pakistan or in the region, could you take us back a bit and tell us what went wrong, perhaps, in the relationship that democratic governments in the United States have had with Pakistan, as well as those that Republican governments have had with Pakistan? Because, according to Mr. Trump, he wasn't referring to Pakistan. He was speaking about a different part of the world, but at various rallies, he's repeatedly sort of, said, if not in very coherent terms, that the United States is, to a great extent, responsible for the mess it has created, or for the messes that have been created in many parts of the world.
Well, I don't think that there's any question about that. I should also mention a major factor, and this goes to your point of why there's been this shifting relationship with Pakistan recently. It has to do with the shift by the Obama administration that actually began, I think, under Bill Clinton, towards improved relations with India. India has now become the second largest purchaser of American military goods, and I think that is also a reason why we've seen this shift. Of course, during the Cold War, it was natural for the United States to support Pakistan, despite the fact that for much of its history, it's been run by military dictators. And India was aligned with the former Soviet Union. I think also that after 9/11, there was an absolute necessity on the part of the United States to maintain at least an intelligence relationship with Pakistan, because Pakistan was instrumental, the ISI was instrumental in providing intelligence to the United States, some of it very wrong, about alleged and suspected terrorists, about the state of the Taliban insurgency, et cetera, et cetera. There was also enormous cooperation when it came to drone strikes. I disclosed that
Unfortunately, we're going to have to cut Jonathan short. We are, of course, have actually run out of time completely on this bulletin, but I am going to extend my thanks to the national security editor of Thomson Reuters, Jonathan Landay, for joining us and giving us his perspective on what he says perhaps is not going to be any real change to the relationship between the United States and Pakistan, irrespective of whether it's Trump or if it's Clinton. Also, thanks very much to my colleague and senior international correspondent for WION, Padma Rao. We always bring fresh perspective to the table. Thanks so much for being with us. On that note, it is goodbye from us here on WION. News and coverage of the US elections continue on the other side of this short break. Thanks for joining us.